The year is 2025, the world is a different place. Tensions are high. The global economy is teetering on the brink. The once thriving markets are now shadows of their former selves, with investors and businesses alike holding their breath, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes game. And a trade war is raging between two of the world's closest allies, the United States and Canada. This conflict has not only strained diplomatic relations, but has also disrupted the lives of millions on both sides of the border. It began, as many conflicts do, with a series of escalating disputes and misunderstandings. What started as minor disagreements over tariffs and trade policies quickly snowballed into a full-blown economic confrontation. But it quickly spiraled into something much larger and more destructive. Factories began to shut down, workers were laid off, and protests erupted in major cities, reflecting the growing discontent among the populace. At the heart of this conflict is former U.S. President Donald Trump, who returned to the White House in 2024 on a wave of populist anger and economic anxiety. His campaign capitalized on the fears and frustrations of many Americans who felt left behind by globalization and technological change. He campaigned on a promise to bring back American jobs and restore America's industrial might. His rhetoric resonated with many, particularly in the Rust Belt states, where manufacturing jobs had been disappearing for decades. His primary target, Canada and its auto industry. Trump accused Canada of flooding the U.S. market with cheap cars, undermining American manufacturers, and costing American workers their jobs. Trump argued that Canada was taking advantage of the United States. He claimed that the trade imbalance was a result of unfair practices, and that it was time to level the playing field. He claimed that unfair trade practices were costing American jobs and harming American businesses. The narrative of economic victimhood struck a chord with many, fueling support for his aggressive trade policies. He vowed to take action, and he did. With a series of executive orders and policy changes, Trump set the stage for a dramatic shift in U.S. trade relations. In early 2025, Trump slapped hefty tariffs on Canadian-made cars and car parts. These tariffs were designed to protect American industries, but had the unintended consequence of escalating tensions with one of America's closest allies. This sent shockwaves through the global economy. Stock markets around the world reacted with volatility, and businesses scrambled to adjust to the new trade landscape. It also ignited a trade war that would have far-reaching consequences. Economists warned of the potential for a prolonged economic downturn, and the ripple effects were felt in industries far beyond the auto sector. The world watched anxiously as the two nations navigated this unprecedented conflict, uncertain of what the future would hold. The American auto industry, once a symbol of American strength and ingenuity, found itself caught in the crossfire. Ford Motor Company, an iconic American brand, was hit particularly hard. The company had long relied on a complex supply chain that spanned the US-Canada border. Ford's popular F-Series pickup trucks, assembled in factories across the American Midwest, were heavily reliant on Canadian-made parts, especially engines and transmissions. The tariffs made these components significantly more expensive. This squeezed Ford's profit margins and forced the company to raise prices. Consumers, faced with rising sticker prices, began to hold back on purchases. Sales of Ford vehicles, particularly its lucrative trucks, began to plummet. Dealerships across the country found themselves with lots overflowing with unsold inventory. The once mighty Ford Motor Company was in trouble. Canada, caught off guard by the sudden tariffs, was not going to take this lying down. The nation, known for its polite demeanor, was ready to show its steely resolve in the face of economic aggression. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in a fiery speech to the nation, denounced Trump's actions as unjustified and harmful. He emphasized that these tariffs were not just an attack on the Canadian economy, but on the principles of fair trade and international cooperation. He vowed that Canada would respond with tariffs of its own. Trudeau's message was clear: Canada would not be bullied and would stand up for its economic sovereignty. Canada retaliated with targeted tariffs on a range of American goods, from agricultural products like bourbon and orange juice. These products were chosen not just for their economic impact, but for their symbolic value as quintessentially American, to manufactured goods like ketchup and air conditioners. The aim was to hit American industries that were both economically significant and politically sensitive. These tariffs were carefully chosen to inflict maximum political pain on Trump's base of support. By targeting goods produced in key swing states, Canada hoped to create internal pressure on the US administration to reconsider its stance. The Canadian government also began to look for ways to reduce its reliance on the US market. This involved a comprehensive review of trade policies and economic strategies to diversify its trading partners. It actively sought new trading partners, signing deals with the European Union, China, and other countries. These agreements were not just about immediate economic relief, but were part of a long-term strategy to build a more resilient and diversified economy. Canada was determined to weather the storm and emerge from the trade war stronger than before. The nation's resilience and strategic foresight were key to navigating these turbulent times, ensuring that it could stand tall on the global stage despite the challenges. The trade war between the United States and Canada sent shockwaves through the global economy. This conflict, which began as a series of tariffs and counter-tariffs, quickly escalated into a full-blown economic standoff that affected not just the two countries involved, but the entire world. The ripple effects were felt in markets across Europe, Asia, and beyond, as investors scrambled to make sense of the rapidly changing landscape. Financial markets reacted with fear and uncertainty. Traders and investors who thrive on stability and predictability found themselves in uncharted waters. The volatility was unprecedented, with stock prices swinging wildly from one day to the next. The uncertainty made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future, leading to a slowdown in investment and hiring. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key indicator of the health of the American stock market, experienced wild swings, plummeting hundreds of points on news of escalating tensions. This was not just a minor dip, it was a significant downturn that wiped out billions of dollars in market value. Investors were left reeling, and the impact was felt in retirement accounts, investment portfolios, and corporate balance sheets. The political fallout was just as dramatic. Lawmakers on both sides of the border were quick to weigh in, with some calling for a more measured approach, while others demanded a hard-line stance. The debate was heated, with accusations and counter-accusations flying back and forth. The political climate became increasingly polarized, making it difficult to find common ground. The normally cordial relationship between the US and Canada, two countries with a long history of friendship and cooperation, was strained to the breaking point. Diplomatic channels that had once been used to resolve disputes amicably were now filled with tension and mistrust. The sense of camaraderie that had characterized the relationship for decades was replaced by a sense of rivalry and competition. Public opinion on both sides of the border hardened, fueled by nationalistic rhetoric and media coverage that often played up the conflict. In the United States, there were rallies and protests supporting the administration's tough stance on trade. In Canada, there were similar demonstrations, with citizens showing their support for their government's efforts to stand up to what they saw as bullying tactics. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception, often highlighting the most sensational aspects of the conflict. Trump, never one to back down from a fight, doubled down on his protectionist policies. He argued that the trade imbalance with Canada was unfair, and that his actions were necessary to protect American jobs and industries. His speeches were filled with fiery rhetoric, and he used social media to rally his base and keep the pressure on Canada. He dismissed concerns about the trade war's impact on the American economy as fake news. According to Trump, the media was exaggerating the negative effects and not giving enough attention to the potential long-term benefits of his policies. He remained steadfast in his belief that his approach would ultimately lead to a stronger, more self-sufficient American economy. He continued to rail against Canada, accusing the country of ripping off the United States for decades. He claimed that previous administrations had allowed Canada to take advantage of the US through unfair trade practices, and that it was time to level the playing field. His accusations were met with strong reactions from Canadian officials and the public. Trudeau, for his part, refused to be bullied. He made it clear that Canada would not be intimidated and that his government would do whatever it took to protect Canadian interests. His speeches were marked by a tone of defiance and determination, and he received widespread support from the Canadian public. He stood firm against Trump's pressure, defending Canada's interests and its workers. Trudeau visited factories and met with workers to reassure them that their jobs were a top priority. He emphasized the importance of standing together in the face of external threats and maintaining a united front. The relationship between the two leaders, once characterized by mutual respect, had devolved into open hostility. The personal animosity between Trump and Trudeau was evident in their public statements and interactions. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict were hampered by the lack of trust and goodwill between the two leaders. The standoff showed no signs of ending, leaving the future of US-Canada relations uncertain.